Hey everybody, welcome to episode 4. Can you believe there's 4 episodes of Back to Bagpiping? Who knew I could talk this much? If you know me, you know that I can talk this much. This episode is all about music. I promised that I would talk about music and the tunes that I had to learn coming back to piping that I either forgot or didn't know in the first place. So, if you are new to bagpiping and you're just learning on the channel, you're going to do scale work, you're going to do grace notes, embellishments. You're going to be working on that for a little bit, but you're going to learn songs as you go because your pipe teacher is going to want to make it interesting. So you might learn something like Scots Wha Hey, Highland Laddie, tunes like that. But the standard tunes that you must know, there are two that you can never screw up, that you will always play, no matter where you are. If you're playing in mass bands or if you're playing alone, the number one most requested tune is Amazing Grace. So, once you have your grace notes down, if you're a new piper or if you're returning to piping, make sure that you know Amazing Grace because everybody asks for it. So where I live here in Palmerton, when I came out of retirement and started playing pipes on my porch, Mrs. Brown lives across the street, and Mrs. Brown loves Amazing Grace. So I keep my neighbors happy because what I do is when I play, I always end with Amazing Grace, and that she gets up and she goes back in the house when I play Amazing Grace because that is the last tune that I play every night because everybody loves it. You will get sick of playing it. My mother forbade us to play it at her funeral. She said she would come out of the casket after me and my brother if we played that at her funeral. So I played in the graveyard where she's buried during Celtic Fest. I played, but I couldn't play Amazing Grace because I didn't want her coming out. So I actually played it on the other side of the cemetery for a friend of mine's grandmother who's also buried at Niskey Hill in Bethlehem. So Amazing Grace, number one tune that people will ask you for. The second tune that people always ask for, but they don't always know the name of it, is Scotland the Brave. So that's the one that everybody knows and everybody plays. And when you play in mass bands, you're probably going to play Scotland the Brave and something else. The something else is usually Wings, the Rowan Tree. Those are the sort of standards for mass bands. So if you're learning tunes and you're putting them in the order, and by the way, I have links to all of this music down below so that you can go and listen to these tunes. And then sheet music is available all over the place. But if you can't find sheet music for any of these tunes, let me know and I will get it to you. So sort of the standards that every piper knows that I had to learn before I joined Mackay and before I joined Celtic United, I was thinking like, all right, I got the sheet music out for Scotland. It came back very quickly because I, sort of muscle memory imprinted on my brain, and I knew Amazing Grace. That was the only tune I could remember after 22 years. But some of the other ones that I know that I needed to know, Flower of Scotland is one that a lot of people ask for, and Going Home. Those are ones that you play at funerals. Highland Cathedral is one that a lot of people request, and that happens to be one of my favorite songs. It's tunes. It's the tune that I played for my high school solo when I was pipe major. So I love Highland Cathedral played with seconds. So I loved playing it with my brother because he would play seconds, and I'm going to talk about seconds in a little bit too, if you are in a band and have the opportunity to play with somebody for seconds. So Green Hills of Tyrol is another one, and it's funny because I had to think about what the full names of these tunes were because you always abbreviated them, right? Like Scotland the Brave, we call it Scotland. Green Hills of Tyrol, we call it Green Hills, right? So Flower of Scotland, Flower, right? So because you say them over and over and you don't say the full name. So, Scotland, Brave, Wings, Rowan Tree, Amazing Grace, Flower of Scotland, Green Hills of Tyrol, Highland Laddie. The Skyboat song is one that I remember playing a lot back in the day. The Black Bear, that's a very popular one. That's a nice peppy one that gets people going. If you're playing with an Irish-Scottish band like I do with Mackay, Minster Boy is very popular, Wearing of the Green. Those are often played together. Danny Boy, which I didn't know and learned on the fly at Celtic Fest. Those are sort of the standard set of tunes that like every piper kind of knows. And there are some other ones that people, bands will play. And again, it's regional and it's, your pipe band will pick, like Mackay and Celtic United play very different sets of tunes. Celtic United does a whole military set that I love. Our pipe major adapted our Marine and Navy and Air Force and Army hymns into pipe music. So so we play that, but Mackay doesn't play those. So each band is different with what they play, and you have to decide what it is you want to play, and what makes you happy and what brings you joy when you're playing. So my favorite tunes that I absolutely love, Highland Cathedral is one of them. It is what we did play at my mother's funeral because she wouldn't accept Amazing Grace. So Highland Cathedral is probably one of my favorite tunes, and I've played it a million times, but I still love it, and I do love it with seconds. So the version I have below has the seconds in it. Dark Island is another favorite tune. That actually I was requested of me this weekend when I was volunteering at the AMC Harriman Center up in New York. There was somebody from Scotland who had been a bagpiper when he was younger, and I asked him if he had any special requests, and he named some tunes that I didn't know, because there are millions of bagpipe tunes, but he said, if you, and in his Scottish brogue, said, if you play Dark Island, I will cry. And I said, well, I know that one, but I don't play it that often, so I had a friend come and hold my phone for me so I could just have the music. I did end up remembering all of it, but just to be safe. And as you know, when you play pipe music, you don't play with the music, so everything has to be committed to memory. Another fan favorite, but also a favorite of mine, is a triplet of Itchy Fingers, Mason's Apron, and The Clumsy Lover. Again, gets the blood going, and they're lots and lots of fun to play. Craig's a Tumble Down Mountain, I love. That's another tune that, sort of, gives you a nostalgic feeling. It's often played with a band, like with a marching band. One of my favorites that's local is the one that was written by Scott Walker called Epic, and that has seconds with it that I love playing, and just recently was able to play the seconds on it. I didn't play seconds on it when I played pipes the first time around, but and I'll talk about seconds now since I'm talking about Epic. Bands that play when they have a piper, and then they have a piper playing seconds, harmony, and melody, it's really important that the pipers all listen to each other. And so there is some kind of formula. I think my brother said it's like one person playing seconds to every 10 people playing the melody line. I don't know if that's real or true or not, but if too many people play seconds, it doesn't sound good. And if you only have a small amount of pipers, seconds don't sound great in every tune, right? Highland Cathedral is probably the exception to that, because when we played with the four pipers at there was an ecumenical service at Celtic Fest, and there were 4 of us, and 2 of us played melody and 2 played harmony, and that actually sounded epically awesome, right? That sounded awesome. But it doesn't sound great if too many people are playing the seconds and not enough people are playing the melody. The other thing that I think, and this is, up to debate, I don't think the pipe major should play seconds. I think because the pipers are trained, especially in competition, you're trained to watch the pipe major and watch, you're not allowed to move, right? You're not allowed to tap your own feet. You're not. So you're really, you should be watching your pipe major. And if your pipe major is playing seconds, then it might mess you up. But, in some bands, that's the only person who can play seconds, and so no judgment. It's just my preference that the pipe major wouldn't play seconds. So when when you're playing seconds in a band, people often get messed up if they're standing next to you and they don't play seconds. So you make sure that if you aren't a person who plays seconds, that you're able to stand next to people who are playing seconds if you're playing the melody line, and it won't screw you up. But playing seconds, you really have to listen to the melody line, and that actually takes some work, because if the folks playing seconds are just going off on their own and the folks playing melody are just going off on their own, then it doesn't sound like a cohesive tune when it's together. So that really does have to be practiced, the first and the seconds together, so that it sounds good and people learn to listen to one another. And my brother and I have talked about that, about bands listening to each other and listening to the playing. And your pipe major and your pipe sergeant are the folks that you should be looking at or looking toward and watching what he or she or they are doing, right? So that you're all playing together. And then the drums as well should be playing along with the pipers. So Epic is one of my favorite tunes. There isn't, unfortunately, a recording of it that I could share with you down below. And the other tune that that Mackay plays, that's kind of special to Mackay, that one of their pipe majors wrote, is called Awkward Tune, and that's a fan favorite. And that's a really cool tune because it's got a great drum line, as does Epic. It's got it starts off and it's fun, but then it goes into Amazing Grace, and then it goes back to this fun line. And so that is a really cool tune to play too, and it's you can be a little fun with it, and you can do some tapping and kind of drag it out and make it fun. So so every band, I think, has a special tune that's unique to them, that's a fan favorite. Awkward Tune and Mackay, Epic, and Celtic United. So those are fun tunes. And if you write music, which I write a little bit of music, and I haven't written any yet in this iteration of piping, but there are tools now that never existed 22 years ago, and one of them is the bagpipe I can't remember the name of the app, the Bagpipe Makers, I think what it's called, and you can actually write music in it. And so they have these tools that they didn't have before. I've used our Bagpipe Player, that's the name of it, Bagpipe Player, and I've used it because Mackay has their music in Bagpipe Player, so you can play along with it. But again, I think I said this before, it plays exactly how the music is written. So if it's not written correctly in Bagpipe Player, then you're not going to be able to play along with it right. So, just be careful with the tools and make sure you know how to use them. I am still a fan of handwritten bagpipe music, and I still have, believe it or not, Scott's version of Epic that he hand wrote and photocopied on an old-fashioned photocopier for the band. So, it is what it is. Old school, what can I say? So another tune that I absolutely love is Ode to Joy. That's a nice holiday tune, repurposed from a hymn into bagpipes, and I like it. And then one of my favorite tunes, and the tune that I came back with, is 343 The Fallen, which I've included down below. That was written for the 343 firefighters who died in 9/11, and it was released by the Red Hot Chili Peppers as a tribute charity, a single, and you could purchase the music. And as I mentioned in a previous video, I bought that music, even though I was never planning to return to bagpipes. I bought the music just to contribute to the charity. I live close to New York. A lot of our fire departments went in to help provide aid to those fire departments. So I really wanted to provide, financial support, especially at the time, because the fire departments really, really needed it. And the families. So I bought it, and I said, if I ever do return to piping, this is going to be the very first tune I learn. And it was, in fact, the first tune I learned, and I didn't need to know it for a band. Neither one of my bands play it. I'm going to work on that and try to get them to play it. I play it at every event that I go to. I play it with Amazing Grace, and it's just a very moving tune, and I really enjoy it. So I love playing music. I love new tunes. So if you have any recommendations for me, please put them in the comments below. There are so many great tunes out there, and there's the music books that have been around forever that we used to pick our pipe tunes from, but now with the internet, you can share tunes really easily with folks, and I'm always looking for new things to play. I came back to piping in March, right before St. Patrick's Day, so I had to learn these tunes very, very quickly. And so somebody asked me yesterday, well, how did you learn so many tunes so quickly? And I have to credit the internet and my pipe teacher, Matt, because now the MP3s and the PDFs, Celtic United has all of their music on their website, and I have a link to it below, so that you can check out their music too. And they have the firsts and the seconds. I play seconds for some tunes. It just made it so much easier because I could just play along. I would put my earbuds in, and this is how silly I am. I did not think about that. I didn't think about putting my earbuds in and listening and playing along with what I was hearing in my earbuds. And then my pipe teacher was like, well, why don't you put your earbuds in and do that? it just never occurred to me, because back in 1990, when I was playing heavily, there weren't earbuds. We had those things that went over your head and the thing you had to carry around. So I was like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I'll go on my porch, I'll put my earbuds in, I'll put the music on, and then I'll play along with the tune. And that really, really helped. It was hard. I couldn't do that with Bagpipe Player, though, because I didn't have the exports of the MP3s to do it with. So I feel like I learned Celtic United's music a lot faster because I was able to play it with my earbuds in. And then the tunes that I struggled with, I worked with Matt to make sure that the grace notes were correct. And then I was playing, the right speed and all those sorts of things. So, so to learn them, the only way to learn bagpipe music is to play bagpipe music. That is the only way. Like if we were Mandalorian, this is the way. You have to play the tunes over and over on your practice chanter, with the music, without the music, with earbuds in, with earbuds out. Then you put them on pipes, earbuds in, earbuds out. You have to play the tunes over and over to commit them to memory. But you should learn them correctly. And that, I've heard, people who teach other people, they're like, oh, well, don't worry about the grace notes. You can add them later. That is really hard to do. Don't do that. That is very bad advice. I'm sure there's a, whole host of people who won't agree with me here, but learn the tune the correct way the first time, because it is so much harder to go back after 30 years and relearn how to play Tarluas in Scotland the Brave when you didn't play them 22 years ago, right? It's like, it's really work now. It's really hard because I have committed, to muscle memory, these incorrect grace notes, or grace notes that weren't supposed to be there, or grace notes that I wasn't playing correctly. It has been a labor of love to fix all of those. I wish I would have spent the time back then learning the tunes correctly. So take your time and learn them correctly if you're just starting off learning a tune. And look at a few different versions. Pick the version that you want to play. If you're going into competition, you give the music to the judge if the music doesn't exist in the books that they tell you that you can pick from. So play the music that's written on the paper, right? And learn that from the beginning. Don't skip on grace notes. And if you wonder, well, why are grace notes important? Why are these embellishments at all important? Play something like Scotland the Brave or Amazing Grace without grace notes. It's really hard to do if you know how to play them, but try to play it without the grace notes and see what it sounds like. It's boring. Like, nobody would love bagpipes if it didn't have the blips and the beeps and the, the cool little characteristics that make bagpipe music interesting and fun. So definitely pay attention to embellishments, grace notes. Make sure that you're learning the tune correctly the first time so that you don't have to go back when you come back out of retirement and learn it the right way. So that's my spiel for today, all about music. I wanted to share links with you. I did have a question that had come in about which kilt I wear. So right now I wear, I've ordered my own personal kilt in my family tartan, which is Clan Young, so to match my brother. And but I wear the Mackay kilt. I don't have a kilt yet for Celtic United. They've ordered me one. But I play with the kilt for whatever band I'm representing. But that was one of the reasons why I wanted to get my own family kilt, so that when I do private events, I'm representing my family. But I do promote both of my bands everywhere I go. And for me, they're very different bands, and they're both wonderful. So they really don't compete with one another. Celtic Festival is the only event that they share in common. And even though they share that event in common, there's only one event in that weekend that they both do, and that's the parade. Mackay has less pipers, so I march with Mackay, and I wear their kilt. So that's why I march with Mackay as well. But they're both great bands, and they're both, they're both very special in their own ways. So right now it's not a conflict for me, and I like playing bagpipes every day. So I would join 50 bands if I could, just so I could play bagpipes every day. But that would be exhausting, and I have other things to do, and I have other hobbies. I should podcast about all of those, but I won't. Anyway, thank you for joining me. As always, if you want to support my effort to buy David Nail DN6 bagpipes, there's a Patreon below and my Venmo information. But if not, that's cool too. I hope that you like this video and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. All right, be well.